All right, so good morning to everyone who has just joined us, and welcome to the Encryption All webinar. So we are looking forward to spending some time with you. So please keep your microphone muted all times to avoid any disturbances. We will give you time to raise questions at the end of the three sessions. You can use MS Team chat feature. So please type your first and last name and put your question. So due to the time limitation, we might not be able to answer all your questions, but we will collect them and get back to you after the meeting. Okay, and then so before I start, I will just talk about what is the Internet Society. The Internet Society is an American nonprofit organization founded in 1992 to provide leadership in Internet-related standards, education, access, and policy. Its mission is to promote the open development, evolution, and use of the Internet for benefits of all people throughout the world. Sri Lankan chapter of the Internet Society started about 10 years back. Serves the society's purpose by serving the interest of the segment of the global internet community through the local presence and focus on local issues and developments on use of local languages. So currently we have about 1,000 members, and those members compares with the regular members, plus we have office bearers and executive team. So every year we have the general election, and then from the election, we choose office bearers and then the executive team. And actually, let me introduce myself. So I'm actually my name is Prasad Silva. I'm the president of Internet Society. So now we have, we get lots of projects. Usually we get small grants and large grants. So the large grant can be up to 30,000 US dollars. So then, you can, engage in any community projects. And we have something called chapter turn. So that is run through several countries, and, we can participate as well. And then by becoming a member, you can actually engage in global programs. And apart from that, in Sri Lankan in chapter, we engage in talking about policy developments and tech talks and other activities. So you can become a member of the Internet Society by visiting www.ISOC-LK and then click on the contact us. Now, first you need to become a global member, and then you can join the Sri Lankan chapter. Right, so without further delays, we can start the session. We have three presenters, and so we have Poojani, so who's our project chair, and Nafas, who's our ISOC member. So we three recently we took the global encryption program, and so thought of sharing this community so that you could get some basic idea about encryption and its widely used terminologies. Okay, so let me get to the presentation. All right, so let me share my screen. Right, I hope Poojani join. So Nafas is, if Poojani is not there, you can actually help her out. And okay, so let me share my screen. And okay. Okay, I hope everyone can see my screen. Nafas, can you see my screen? I just want to check with you. Or anyone on the panel, or anyone on the meeting, can you see my screen? So you should see a PowerPoint presentation called Encryption for All. Is there anyone? Nafas, can you?
Yes.
Yeah, you can see?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. All right, so let's go to the second slide. Okay, this topic is encryption for all. Encryption is important because it allows you to securely protect data that you don't want anyone else to have access to. Espionage uses encryption to securely protect folder contents, which could contain emails, chat histories, tax information, and credit card numbers, or any other sensitive information. Now, this is the today's agenda. And again, I'm Prasad de Silva, and I'm covering what is encryption, why it is important in our day-to-day life, end-to-end encryption, symmetric and asymmetric encryption, what is the difference, cryptography, encryption in cloud, how encryption works in data rest and data transit, email encryption using PGP, encryption backdoor, what is a brute force attack, what is man-in-the-middle attack and going dark issue, and what is ghost proposal or ghost protocol, and government hacking, and steps to safeguard yourself. And Poojani will cover the encryption on social media, and Nafas will cover the encryption on IoT. So lots to cover. So let's move forward. And what is encryption? Now we have two definitions. I took it from ISOC standpoint. Encryption is a process of scrambling or enciphering data, so it can be read only by someone with the means to return to its original state. It is what makes data secure. And in the Wikipedia, they mentioned that encryption is the process of changing information in such a way as to make it unreadable by anyone except those possessing special knowledge. Usually we refer to as key that allows them to change the information back to its original readable form. Now I put a small diagram. So it just mentioned that, when you are sending a message, it just starts with the plain text. So that's a readable format. And so that is non-encrypted. And then the encryption mechanism comes, and then it become a non-readable format. So we call it as ciphertext. And then it goes to the recipient, and then from the recipient end, so it will decrypt, and then now it become the plain text again. So then they can see it. And why encryption? It actually help, human rights workers, activities, journalists to, safeguard their information. And then it will help you to protect your data. So what you send and what you receive, right? And then it will help to protect your messages in your smartphone, or it will help to protect your health data, or whatever that fitness in in your watch, you have some fitness related information. So everything will be safeguard if you use the proper encryption technologies. Let's move. And what is encryption and what does it do? Now it's a reversible transformation of data. It makes information unintelligible, right? Not inaccessible. You can, for example, you may think encrypted data is not inaccessible. No, it can be accessed, but it's actually unintelligible. That means, if you take a look, there's no meaning of it. So it provides data confidentiality, and it can help provide data integrity. Some things encryption doesn't do. It doesn't stop an adversary from accessing seeing your data. It just make it meaningless. Or it does not prevent your data from being deleted. So maybe one might think, while it is encrypted, you cannot delete your data. So they can delete your data. So encryption can help protect against passive and active attacks. A passive attack is where an adversary wants to read, eavesdrop on your data. For example, a free webmail service wants to mine your emails for information about your interest and purchasing power. Or a criminal wants to intercept your banking ping. An active attack is where you want to okay, so go back. Active attack is where they want to change some information. For example, a criminal want to replace the message, please pay 500 to Robin account number. So then, but criminal in the middle, he can change the account number. So then it will actually change the information. So where it goes. And we have three major encryption types: DES, AES, and RSA. So I'm not going to go in detail about this one because we don't have much time to go through more technical information because of the time limit. And let's talk about some terminologies of encryption. So you may heard about what's called an end-to-end encryption. End-to-end encryption is the form of encryption in which only the sender and the intended recipient can read the message. No third party, even the party providing the communication service, has knowledge of the encryption key. So other one is a symmetric encryption. The most common form of encryption for data confidentiality is a symmetric encryption. So a key used to encrypt data and the same key or copy is used to decrypt data. It's kind of that you use the same key to unlock your suitcase, right? The advantages is fast, easy to use, not CPU intensive. And asymmetric encryption it uses two keys for encryption, and so it uses the public key when it sends, and then it uses the private key to decrypt. And so the differences are like it's very CPU intensive and slow, but it's hard to decrypt, right? Okay, so let's move to the next one. Okay. Now, so these are the two diagrams. This is the diagram I used to explain about this symmetric and asymmetric encryption. So as you can see, in the symmetric encryption, we have the plain text start with the secret key. It uses the same key, and then it uses the same key to decrypt. And then in the middle, you can see the ciphertext, right? So that's the symmetric encryption, and it uses the same key called public key. So the examples are TLS and Signal are those some kind of example. And asymmetric encryption, now as you can see, it uses the plain text start, and then it uses the public key to encrypt the message, and it uses the secret key or the private key to decrypt message, right? So that's the main difference between symmetric and asymmetric encryption. And now you may have a terminology called cryptography. So what is cryptography? Cryptography is or cryptology is the practice of study of hiding information. When a message is sent using cryptography, it is changed or encrypted before it is sent. The method of change in the text is called a code, or more precisely a cipher. The changed text is called ciphertext. So modern cryptography uses sophisticated mathematical equations or algorithms and secret keys to encrypt and decrypt data. Today, cryptography is used to provide a secrecy and integrity to our data, and both authentication and anonymity to our communication. So three types of cryptography: secret key, public key, and hash function. So what is the key difference between the cryptography and encryption? Cryptography is the study of concepts like encryption, decryption, and use. So encryption is used to provide secure communication, whereas encryption is the process of encoding message with an algorithm. So that's different. So let's move to the next slide. Okay. All right. So you may have heard about the cloud encryption. So that's the type of encryption. Now you know that everything now is in cloud. Your emails or your documents, your communication is now on cloud. So the cloud encryption is a service offered by cloud storage providers whereby data or text is transformed using encryption algorithms and is then placed on the storage cloud. So for example, Google Cloud platform encrypts customer data stored at rest by default with no additional action required from you. Data in Google Cloud platform is broken into sub-file chunks for storage, and each chunk is encrypted at the storage level with an individual encryption key. So how does cloud encryption work? Cloud encryption solutions encode data as it travels to and from cloud-based applications and storage to authorize users of the data at their locations. In addition, cloud encryption services may encode data as it's stored on cloud based on the storage device. A cloud encryption gateway is the technology that provides a point of process encryption for data traveling to and from a cloud environment. It is a tool that it sits between cloud system and in-house system and perform encryption or tokenization of data transit. So this uses the same symmetric and asymmetric methods in cloud encryption. Okay, and this is a diagram that I put to illustrate about the cloud encryption. So as you can see, the data is submitting and then it is scrambled, and then we have a trusted authority in the middle. So use the asymmetric key and then the private key to decrypt. So that's a typical infrastructure of the cloud encryption model. Okay, so I talk about data in transit or data in rest in cloud too. So data in transit or data in motion is a data actively moving from one location to another, such as across the internet or through a private network. So data protection in transit is the protection of the data while it is traveling from network to network or being transferred from a local storage device to a cloud storage device. Wherever data is moving, effective data protection measures for in-transit data are critical as the data is often considered less secure while in motion. So data in rest mean so the information reside in your computer. So data at rest, data is not actively moving from device to device, but it's actually in your hard disk or laptop or flash drive. So now, while data at rest is sometimes considered to be less vulnerable than data in transit, attackers often find data at rest a more valuable target than data in motion, because you can get everything, right, when you hack into your machine. The risk profile for data in transit or data at rest depend on the security measures that are in place to secure data in either state. So data encryption is the best protection method while it is in transit or in rest. All right, so you will get much information, but I will share this presentation at the end, so you can get some information after that. Now we are going to talk about the email encryption. So the most common methodology is used to encrypt is the PGP. Pretty good privacy is used to ensure the confidentiality of email. So PGP was developed in the early 1990s. So PGP encrypts the contents of email messages using a combination of different methods. So PGP uses hashing, data compression, symmetric encryption, and asymmetric encryption. So in addition to email encryption, PGP also supports the use of digital signature to verify the sender of an email. So PGP provides a modern suite of cryptography, confidentiality, integrity, authentication, and non-reproduction. It can be used to encrypt emails, documents, or an entire disk drive. So PGP uses a web of trust model to authenticate digital certificates instead of relying on a central certificate of authority, CA. If you trust that my digital certificate authenticate my identity, so the web of trust mean you trust all the digital certificates that I trust. In other words, if you trust me, you trust everyone I trust. So that's the principle in PGP. All right, so let's talk about the encryption backdoor. So what is encryption backdoor? A backdoor is in a computer is a method that bypassing the normal method of authentication. You know that in a backdoor in our house, instead of using the front door, people are using backdoor to come into your house. So without knowledge, so if you go outside and, we came late, so then we can use the backdoor. So similarly, attackers or, governments can use the backdoor um, and then to access your data. So backdoors are usually inserted into a program or algorithm before it is distributed widely. So they are often a hidden part of the design of the program or algorithm. So in cryptography, specifically, a backdoor would allow an intruder to access the encrypted information without having the correct credentials. The backdoor would be either allow the intruder to guess the access key based on the context of the message, or allow the intruder to present a skeleton key that will grant him access. So there are few kinds of encryption backdoors, but one simple method is called key escrow. So under key escrow system, okay, so someone's microphone is on. So let me, okay, Lankeshwaran, can you mute your microphone, please? Okay, thank you. Okay, okay, thanks.
Yes, I unable to understood that, sir. Hello.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can actually. Yeah, you can raise the question at the end because we have limited time, so we need to go through the 3 sessions, and at the end you can type your question at the end. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Okay. All right. So now there are a few kinds of encryption backdoors. So one is the key escrow. So under the key escrow system, the government create and distribute encryption keys to tech companies while retaining the decryption keys in escrow. So this is why key escrow is also sometimes known as key surrender, because you are surrendering to the privacy of your data. All right. So one of the other terminology that you may hear is a brute force attack. What is a brute force attack? Brute force attack is a trial and error method used to obtain information such as user password or personal identification number or PIN. So brute force attacks may be used by criminals to crack encrypted data or by security analysts to test an organization's network security. So now, as you can see illustrated on this, diagram, so this intruder is using automated tool to multiple login attempts to access data. So types of brute force attacks are credentials stuffing. Attacker use known credentials such as email addresses and password that have been previously leaked in breaches from other organizations to log into the network. Since users tend to reuse the same credentials in different services or different applications, so this mode is often successful. Reverse brute force attack. So in this type of attack, the hacker tries to commonly use password and attempts to log in with different username. Or dictionary attack. In this attack, the hacker will enter phrases or well-known words in the dictionary as password. So these are some kind of like a password or admin or welcome, because as you know, most of our routers we use admin as username and password. So then so avoid use this kind of username like passwords. So then they can easily known to this information. So how to protect the brute force attack? So now enforce robust password policies. So the passwords are difficult to guess. Passwords that are combination of numbers, letters, and special characters are most difficult to guess. Besides this, you can also restrict users from having their username and password. Implement two-factor authentication as an additional layer of security. Now these days, if you try to, register or pay for something, it actually asking you to, now it's actually send an OTP code. So that's another way of authentication that, some systems implemented. And limits the login attempts for a specific time frame or by a certain amount. If an attempt goes beyond the specified limit, the account should be locked out for a fixed amount of time. And or the IP address sent in the repeated request should be blocked. So, like we have some applications that after maybe 5 unsuccessful attempts, it's locked for like 15 minutes, right? Or like it locked forever. So then, you need to contact the customer support to get unlocked. And then don't use the same password for different services. If a particular service is compromised, the attackers can reuse the same credentials to access other services. We often use the same password because, it is easy to remember, right? And then we use the same password to log into different services. Now, avoid use that. So what you can do is actually, if you want to use different passwords, what's the safest method is to have your username password in a notebook, right? In a different notebook. So then even, sometime we like to put our password in a notepad or maybe a special note on the phone, right? As a sticky note, right? Sticky notes. But still the attacker or hackers can actually get your password. So the safest method is to, the traditional way, get a pen and, notebook and then write down. So then, you can get it. So, it's less vulnerable. Now, otherwise, now there's another method is to introduce CAPTCHA, then which requires users to identify a pattern of letters and numbers, when during the login process. Notable brute force attacks. WordPress in 2013, WordPress was the target of brute force attacks. So from 90,000 IP addresses, it got compromised. And GitHub in 2013, GitHub became the victim of the brute force attack. The hackers used 40,000 unique IP addresses to force their way into the accounts. And with weak password or password used more than one account. Alibaba, in 2015, Alibaba's e-commerce platform, Temu, suffered a massive brute force attack. Hackers accessed around 99 million credentials leaked from another breach. About 21 million accounts were affected in this breach due to the users generally using the same credentials for different accounts. All right, so let's talk about the man-in-the-middle attack. A man-in-the-middle attack is a general term for when someone positions himself in a conversation between a user and the application, or user, sender and the recipient, or either to eavesdrop or impersonate one of the parties, making it appear as if a normal exchange of information is underway. When using the internet, we expect that our communication are confidential and have not been changed or tampered with in transit. For example, when you enter your password for online banking, you rely on the assumption that your password matches the bank's record. The bank receives the password in its correct form. Third parties cannot see, intercept, or change your password as it is sent to the bank. So the goal of an attack is to steal personal information such as login credentials, account details, and credit card numbers. So targets are typically the use of financial applications, SaaS businesses, e-commerce sites, and other websites where logging in as required. Information obtained during the attack could be used for many purposes, including identity theft, unapproved fund transfers, or an illicit password change. So the broadly speaking, a man in the middle attack is the equivalent of a mailman opening your bank statement, writing down your account details, and then reselling the envelope and delivering it to your door. To prevent, internet users TLS, HTTPS, so then so manual sign out from your website, so not using the public terminals for financial transaction, avoid connecting to Wi-Fi that aren't password protection. So then so the diagram illustrates that user is actually sending the information, but there's a middle person is try to steal the information, but you think it is safe. All right. Another terminology that is actually being discussed is a going dark issue. So now in mainly in European countries and US and Australia, now this going dark issue is actually more often is used. So criminals of all types, including terrorists, are taking advantage of encrypted technology that allows them to operate in the shadows, undetected by law enforcement and the intelligence community. So crime sensors from terrorist attacks, homicides, kidnappings, assaults, and incidents of domestic violence now more often than not include digital communication evidence. So digital footprints are the modern day fingerprint that law enforcement uses to protect the public. With the continued development of new technologies and strategies to advance network security, law enforcement, prosecutors, and other investigators are finding it increasingly difficult to execute lawful court orders to obtain critical digital evidence. So the inability of the law enforcement to overcome these barriers, known as going dark in the law enforcement community. So what it, in simple terms, if you want to investigate into someone's communication, maybe a high profile, say like a president of US, so then you want to, just, listen to his communication. Now, law enforcement authority is now trying to get a court order and then trying to get to access to those information from the backend, right? So then, but the inability, because now it is not a good thing, because, sometimes it may, useful, but, some people, try to use this as a weapon to steal information. So the inability to access that information is actually now the barrier for the government is which is called the going dark issue. Now, with that, there's a related term called a ghost proposal or ghost protocol. So what is a ghost protocol? A ghost protocol is a catchy name for adding a silenced listener to an encrypted conversation. So that is actually the same as a man in the middle. So then, for example, in this example, Gerald is actually sending an information to Laila, right? And then, but Charles in the middle is actually now intercept what is being sent in from Gerald to Laila, and then and now he's trying to break the confidentiality by inserting himself into the middle. So now, but sometimes you may know that sometimes you may have to add users to your chat. For example, in WhatsApp. Now we have a group chat server, and then suppose now we want to add Tom, and then so Gerald and Laila can accept Tom as known party to their group conversation. But there are some parties trying to join the WhatsApp group without knowing you, so that's a danger. Okay. So now again, this is now tampering with the key rollover process is one of the form of attack on the secure key exchange. So now if third parties have access to the keys and resources, trust in the system is fundamentally broken. So that is the major issue, and then now everyone is worrying about. Now even the government says that we want to get we want to get some evidence-based information, But now, what we can do to, make sure that our data is now secure. Now, example of ghost proposal objections. So now there's an open letter to Government of Communication Headquarters. So 47 signatories, including Apple, Google, and WhatsApp, have jointly urged the UK cybersecurity agents to abandon its plan to so-called ghost protocol. So in UK government, so they actually cybersecurity agency try to put a proposal in place, so then so government can come to a man in the middle and then get access to information. So those social media, the companies, they oppose, and then so they don't like it. And then so likewise Apple, so they publicly opposed the FBI when they asked to access the iPhone of the San Bernardino shooter Said Farouk. The technology giant refused to help FBI, citing issues that data privacy. Eventually the FBI had to back down. So finding another way of way into device without Apple's help. Okay, so there are some articles down there to get an idea about what is ghost proposal. So the conclusion of ghost proposal. So do proposal at silence listeners to encrypted communication meet the claimed goal? It may strictly be true to say that the encryption algorithms have not been changed, but encryption is a system, and these proposals undermine other crucial elements of the system, with the result that supposedly confidential communications between the sender and receiver are no longer confidential. So ghost proposal inevitably change the trust relationship between users and service providers, whether the user knows it or not. If users are unaware that third parties could be listening, then their trust in a supposedly confidential service is simply misplaced. If they do think their confidentiality is compromised, their trust in the service provider is undermined. So would users trust any perpetually confidential service if was known that some dominant messaging platform were designed to allow silent listeners? So if industry standards protocols for authenticated key exchange are modified to include silent listeners, how are users to trust authentication and key exchange protocols in other aspects to internet infrastructure? So ghost proposals don't passively add silent listeners, they actively conceal third-party institutions into support and then to compromise this service. So that's a dangerous step. Okay, so governments are increasingly demanding and securing access to encrypted communication, undermining the security and privacy for all users. So there are several governments actually now forcing that social media, those tools to have their come into the middle to get information. So now the time is passing. Now okay, let's talk about government hacking. So now ISOC defined the government hacking as the government entities or national security of law enforcement agencies exploiting vulnerabilities in systems, software or hardware to gain access to otherwise encrypted information. So exploiting vulnerabilities of any kind, whether or law enforcement purposes, security testing, or any other purpose, should not be taken lightly. From a technical perspective, hacking and information communication technology, resources without the consent of the users or owners always an attack, regardless of its motivation. Attacks can damage a device, system, or an active communication stream, or leave them in a less secure state. This significantly increases the risk of future breaches, potentially causing harm to all users of the system. So some of the dangers of the government hacking. So there are some examples I put. For example, now Italian security firm hacking team was hacked in 2015, right? And now a collection of Central Intelligence Agency hacking tools known as Vault 7 was leaked in 2017, right? And then Another one is that advanced persistent threat. Publicly most famous example is the Stuxnet virus, allegedly created by US and Israeli to government to destroy Iranian nuclear centrifuges, but it spread among the globe, so well beyond, and then it affected millions of other systems. So now government hacking should only be considered under these conditions. Now there's a serious threat when it can be demonstrated that it is necessary to protect human life, of public safety, or prevent serious crime. Or it is the last resort when there's no other valuable alternative. So then, it could enable the government to access information. So there's a judicial oversight when it pursuant to a properly executed judicial warrant. So if you have a warrant, you can do that. So risk must be mitigated. There's no foreseeable risk of damage or other harm to the security of others. Okay, the criteria should be transparent and defined by relevant stakeholders. So this should include, but is not limited to, the law enforcement, judicial officers, and technical specialists, and civil society. Now, steps to safeguard: use the end-to-end encrypted messaging apps like WhatsApp, Signal, Threema, or Telegram, or turn on encryption on your devices or services. All right, and then use strong password. Now, don't use the easily guessed password. Use combination of characters, special characters, numbers, punctuation marks, and all this stuff. And change your password often. Keep the updates, security updates on your machine, and then turn on the two-factor login or two-factor authentication. Often you may have noticed that when you log into Facebook, now they provide that information. Use two-factor authentication, or in your banking, you can set up your two-factor authentication, or even for your Google Gmail. So turn on erase data option. When you log out from your system or close your browser, you can actually turn on that feature to safeguard. Now, key messages to the government: encryption keeps millions of people safe and secure every day. So effort to weaken encryption will create dangerous precedent, giving a green light to criminals, terrorist organizations, and hostile governments to access and exploit sensitive information. So weakening encryption will create a virtual tinderbox for criminal activity, with devastating consequences for both personal and security and national security. The best way to prevent crime and protect countries is to adopt stronger encryption policies and industry practices. We must push for strong encryption policies and industry practices, prevent crime, protect citizens, and safeguard nations. Conclusions: there's no way to provide access to encrypted communication for law enforcement without making all of the users on that service more vulnerable. There's no such thing called backdoor only for the good guys can ever use. Encryption relies on authentication. If you can't be sure who you are talking to, you can't be sure of confidentiality. Authentication is a fundamental part of the secure key exchange. Undermining the encryption mechanisms undermine trust. If users can't trust the encryption, they can't trust the service. So encryption in internet society role, internet society act as advocacy. So service as a diligent advocate and inform governments and businesses about why it is necessary and in the best interest of to maintain the unambiguous encryption. And encryption, internet society impacts. So these are some key outcome diagrams. And so UK's Ghost proposal, end-to-end encrypted message access. Now, for the closing remarks in my presentation, so you can reference to this ISOC Global Encryption Training module. So you can visit internetsociety.org and then take a look at encryption modules. And we have a FB page called Encryption for All. So you can get most of this information. And of course, you can join the Internet Society and then click on the Contact Us page to join the society. Thank you. And then with that, I'm going to exit this presentation. Okay. All right. So with this, let me see if our other presenter is here. All right. Is Poojani there?
Yeah.
All right. So let me pass the presenter to Poojani. So Poojani will talk about encryption in social media platform. Over to you, Poojani. Thank you.
Thanks, Prasad. Can everyone see my screen? Hello?
Not yet, Poojani, not yet.
Hello?
Yeah.
Can everyone see?
Not yet. You can actually, you can stop sharing and then so make sure that your PowerPoint presentation is on and then click on share and then, choose that presentation on the bottom. Can you do that?
How about now? Prasad?
No, not yet. Mm, like, yeah. So did you click share and then yeah. So when you click share, you can see that your window. Just choose maybe entire window or maybe choose the presentation that you open. Select that. When you click share, you will see that small window at the bottom. No? Okay. So yeah. So then if it is not shareable, Poojani, can you send me that presentation? Then I will share that for you. Then
Okay.
you can speak about. And then so let me then give the presenter to Nafas. Nafas, you can then talk about the IoT, encryption. So then Poojani can do the rest. Yeah. Over to you, Nafas. Nafas can't hear. Can't hear. Is your microphone unmute? Yeah, can you talk again?
Hi, hello everyone.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Good.
All right.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Give me a minute. I just want to share my. All right. So this is. Can you see my screen, right?
Yes, we can see. Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you very much, Prasad, for your valuable presentations. And I'm here. I'm actually Nafas. I'm the member of ISOC. And today, my portion is like I would like to cover the encryptions, how the encryptions are working on the IoT, Internet of Things. Okay, right. So I just want to make it hurry because of the time. So the rest, the theory parts, I like the cryptography and those things. I will just cover up a little fastly. Like as Prasad said, cryptography is the science of how we are encrypting and decrypting the communications to protect the informations, right? But if you talk about the IoT security, but this is the cryptography is the very fundamentation or the foundations, the basic building block of the IoT security. show that the encryption is very much important in Internet of Things. If you look at about the IoT devices nowadays, in the last 2018, we had 7 billion of IoT devices in the worldwide, which was connected to the web. And the next years, it was 26.66 billion. So you can see how the growth of the IoT devices. And but the experts are, they are calculating that in every seconds there is 127 new IoT devices are being connected to the internet. So this point, this era or this current situation, this is very much important to study the, making awareness about in the IoT security. So that I hope this is very much a useful lesson to you all. Right. So I just want to make it hurry about here. Just will come here the IoT devices and its architectures. Like, what about IoT devices nowadays? We are, we're very familiar with our smart watch and smart bracelet, and CCTV surveillance and many things like nowadays we are using, right? Even our air conditions and air smart TV, right? So those of the things we are telling that object or internet of the things. So those things are, communicating each other, communicating machine to machines as well as the machine to man or peoples. We are talking to the machines as well as the, machine talking to the machines. So in those cases, nowadays the people are thinking that Internet of Things is only the, the object is connecting to the internet. Not like that. Actually, the Internet of Things, the like for example, my smart watch and my, my smart TVs and my air conditions are talking them into my home. That is also IoT, like maybe using the Bluetooth or Zigbee connections. So within that connections, we have a kind of internet inside my home, right? So when you go beyond to that, like with the help of gateway or routers, with the help of the gateway and routers, we are going to connect to the server or we are going to connect to the cloud. Then actually it is coming to the webs, right? So look at here, and I don't want to tell like how important IoT things, because everyone is aware about the Internet of Things and how people are using is, and how people are using it nowadays. But such enormous benefits also bring new security threats that cannot be ignored nowadays, such as like fake object or fake node, or like can coming into our network and injecting misleading data. It may collapse our our IoT deployment, right? So we have to, so this is the point. Actually, we have to make sure whether our IoT deployment or IoT networks are very safe with the fake object of fake some of the attacks. Okay, so here my point is like IoT vulnerabilities. All right, so to ensure the appropriate level of security of their IoT devices and infrastructures, the businesses or the usual ourselves must perform a risk analysis. So every steps we have to make a risk analysis, like whether our software is updated. We have to update every time our device operating systems, and we are currently updated. So that things we have to make a risk analysis. Whether we are in a business, it is very important rather than the personal use. But I'm not telling that personal use is also very much important. For example, if you are using your smart watch, so the hackers can see your body conditions, how your blood pressure and everything. So nowadays the hackers can see, right? So the personal information as well as the company, the business information is very much important, so that while you are making your IoT networks, IoT deployments, you should make sure whether you have to perform a correct risk analysis and you are making sure the correct safeguard to maintain your IoT networks, right? So we can do the security safeguard in 3 level mainly. This actually we say the software layer or software level, and board level and chip levels, right? So we'll see one by one little detailedly. Okay, so if you look at about my graph, how the cost and then attacks. So for example, if the software attack is like, the attacker usually involved remote networks, like attackers are situations where the attackers cannot gain directly. There are no physical access. The attackers only, access remotely our systems. They will come into the system remotely. Then they will start to hack our or take our data. So this is kind of software attacks. And this is very low cost, maybe around $100 or $200 will be cost for that. So very low cost, right? For example, due to our vulnerable communication protocol, like we are using not a standardized protocol in our systems or our devices, so it will lead to that kind of software attacks. And also, second, we can have like we are using the weak cryptography implementations. Like first I told you, like we are vulnerable communication protocol, and second, we are using that very weak cryptography informations, and like social engineering, like it means like easily guessable password. For example, nowadays, if you're buying a router, so we have the default password at admin and admin, but most of the people, we are not changing that password, right? So the hacker can use that password, the default password. So that is actually the easily guessable password in my point of view. That's also, so they can enter into our systems. Right. So likewise, we have some other malware software. They are injecting some other unwanted virus into our smart devices. They can hack. So such kind of things, such kind of example actually coming under the software layer. Using the software, they can attack your systems. So that is actually very low cost. But if you're going for the board level, so board level is somewhat very much expensive than the software layer. Like for example, the hackers can physically enter in your your IoT deployment. For example, I very much familiar example I can tell you, like if anyone shopping your card, your credit card in the shopping mall, or you are taking money from the ATMs, there is the electromagnetic waves are coming out. So using that electromagnetism, if I use the proper devices, I can read what is your card numbers and what is the PIN number that you are entering. So with the help of that, I can take later on, I can create a fake card. Then I can use to take some money. So this is some kind of bot attack. But here you have to make sure that is not hardware intensive, invasive. So it means we are not we are not damaging the hardware actually. So we have to physically want access the system, the IoT deployments. For example, I'm a hacker. I just want to physically access your network, and using the devices, using the help of devices, I can read some electromagnetic waves. With the help of that, for example, I'm just telling the wave, I can take some password or some other with the ways I can enter in your system. So this is somewhat expensive attacks. Like it costs like thousands of dollars, $1,000 maybe it cost for such kind of single attacks. And that kind of attacks in your IoT devices is called chip levels. It means this is actually this is physically the attackers will come into our systems. It means it is high. Actually, the millions of cost. When I talk about the cost, is very much high, because the attacker should come into your IoT deployment, and they can they can change your physical smart devices, right? So then they can come into the networks. For example, I can tell we have the laser attack. Laser attack is the one kind of very much example in the chip levels. For example, using the laser attack, we have a particular energy in the laser. So using that particular energy, so we are targeting the processor or the memory, and we are changing the memory values. The code will be changed using the laser attacks. We can change the coding or change the values, memory values. We can change. So this is a kind of what's chip level attacks. But here, look at here. So the attackers actually coming into your networks. Maybe if you're the attackers may come into your home. I'm just telling you, attackers may come into your business environments, and they will use to, with the help of the devices, they can attack into your IoT deployment or your IoT network. So you should very much aware about. So there are familiar, word is like, if any IoT devices is not with you, then that is not secure. There are some very much code is there. For example, if your CCTV surveillance camera is there, we have wanted CCTV surveillance camera, but we are placing some around the the village, and you are not aware about where is the camera, but then this is not your camera actually. So maybe it may be hacked, and hackers may be using your network also. All right, so again, then I just move to the next slides. So this is my IoT architecture. So here you can see the possibilities in which way the attacker can, take place and attack your systems. For example, they can, as I told you, with the 3 ways, the device can be controlled by the hackers. Otherwise, the man in the middle attacks with the help of, like, someone can come into their networks, and the particular person will act like a server to the IoT devices and act like a client to the server. So this person, the hacker, will be in the middle. Okay, so he will be act like a server to these devices. So he can get some collapse your networks, and they can get your informations. Likewise, attackers can control your gateway or routers, and they can control the servers. So these are the possibilities of attacks. All right. So, and choosing the right IoT secure solutions. How you can prevent the IoT attacks? I mean, you can build how you can strong your IoT security. Okay. So we have 4 ways of IoT security. Like first, we have authentication. I mean, device authentications. It means whether we are talking to the right persons. So we have the communications machine to machine. So one machine should identify we are talking to the right machines, right? Likewise, the man should identify whether we are talking to the right machines, right? So this is the first. And second, we have the secure connections. Secure connection in sense the data in motions or data in transit, protecting the data in transit. Okay, so we have whether we have the correct connections or not. So we have to make sure in that part. And the third is like secure code executions, like data in use while while the IoT device is working with our encrypting keys and personal very important data. So that informations in the device is still that is open, even you are providing the very much strong connections. While the execution time, the information is very much open. So that time the hackers can take that whether it is your cryptography, I mean the encryption password or some of your personal details, so it can be hacked by the hackers. So the data in use, it means the secure code execution should be implemented in your devices, right? And data at rest, it means while you are storing your data, like in your memories, some places you will store your data. So you should be aware about it, whether that data is still it is in safe manner or not. So in these 4 ways, we can prevent or we can protect our data in IoT networks. So this is the thing is how in the first authentication, device authentications, as I told you, they protect the access of data. So we are allowing the right person to access the data. Second, code executions while executing our code. While transferring the code, so the connection is very strong or not, we have to make sure. And while executing the code in the IoT devices, so still that data is open in the memory of processor. So that time we have to make sure that is very productive or not. And then fourth part, we have data storage, and we have to make sure the data is strong or secure at the storage level. Okay, so to make sure the data device authentications, we can use the through the cryptographic protocols, we can make sure whether we are talking to the right persons. For example, we have the symmetric and asymmetric, as Prasad talked. We have symmetric and asymmetric algorithms. The symmetric, in the way symmetrics, we have 3DES and AES algorithms. These are used to authenticate the device in the symmetric algorithms. And if you are using so much higher secure, normally the asymmetric algorithm is very much secure than the symmetric, but we have very much the processing is very slow because the key is very lengthy, so that it's slow. But if you are using the asymmetric algorithms to authenticate your devices, we have RSA and then ECDSA algorithms available. We can use that algorithm to authenticate your devices. Right, and also to exchange your key securely, we can use the Duffy-Hellman exchange protocol is there. Likewise, station-to-station protocol is there. So you can use those protocols to, share your password or secret keys to some other machines. And I just now have to move to the secure communications. So normally the IoT devices leverage access in the Internet of Technology and the protocol with the providing proven secure communications. It's solution to protect the data in motions, right? So the actual use case of device or not typically, selecting the correct communications protocols. This is a very important part. For example, in our smart grid deployment, that typically flow, we may have the client-server model, otherwise the virtual private networks models, right? So in these two cases, we can use the protocol like SSL, or which is like a secure socket layer, as well as TLS, transport layer security. So these kind of protocols are there, so you can use in your communication is secure. Likewise, MACsec, the media access control security protocol is there, and DTLS LS is datagram transport layer securities. So likewise, if you're using the full mesh of networks, this is IPsec is very much capable protocol to make sure your communication strong. Okay, and next we'll move to secure code executions. So the secure code execution is, as I told you, this is happen in your machine or in your devices. Okay, so we can secure your details in the machine level in the three ways: using some software mechanisms, and second, using some cryptographic chip. This is the hardware and cryptographic chip you can use. And next we have the hardware IP core. So in these three ways, these are three very popular ways to protect your data in use. It means in the processing time in your device. All right. So if you talk about the application levels, I mean the software levels, this is very similar to an operating system. The software is similar to operating systems. We have to place in the memory that particular software used to control some other attacks like debugger and memory tampering and reverse engineering. So such kind of attacks will be somehow prevented by the particular software. So maybe this kind of software will be installed by the manufacturers, not your part, this manufacturer end. So while the manufacturer giving the devices, IoT devices, they're responsible to at least install some similar to some antivirus. Okay, so this kind of software they will install in your. Look at here. So this is my architectures. So here in this memory, so we have this software. This is like operating systems. So this particular software is in the memory. This is used to prevent some attacks. Okay, so this is one way to prevent your device from hacking. Second ways that we can cryptographic chip, or otherwise we say secure element. Another way we say secure elements. So this is a kind of chip, and this is a hardware we used to placed inside the IoT devices. So this normally manufacturer will do, but you should be aware whether these kind of things are available in your IoT devices or not. So you should be aware about it. So we have the secure elements, or whether it is cryptographic chip is embedded or not. So that cryptographic chip is used to perform your, cryptography key, generate, and that kind of function will be taking place by the cryptographic chips, other than the host processor. The host processor is similar to our normal processor in your IoT devices, and we have some sensor and power management unit is there, and keyboard. Some cases keyboard is there, display is there. Some cases not like that. And we have a memory and we have a connectivity. So this is a simple setup of an IoT devices. So here, and we are using the cryptography chip. And second way of protecting your IoT devices using the hardware IP core. Okay, so this is a secure execution environment can be also built directly into the IoT devices, because the second method, if you talk about the cryptography chip, the cryptography chip will perform some task, and while sending to the processor, the communications layer is not secure. So that time also it is possible to leak the informations. So that in order to avoid such kind of problems, the manufacturer are using hardware IP core. It means they are using separate chip into the processor to perform that particular operations. So by using that, you can reduce your IoT device size will be reduced, and it is very much fast. And if you talk about IoT devices, the battery power is very much critical issues. Battery power is very much critical issue. But if you're using this hardware IP core, you can somehow reduce the battery power, as well as this IP core is perform the encryptions task separately will be done inside the processor. So this is now, if you're following these three, your device is safe. They cannot hack. You are somehow protected your devices. Okay, so I can just repeat it. We have three ways. One is software mechanism. You can install the particular software mechanism inside into your devices to prevent some other attack. Second, we have we can place some hardware called cryptographic chip to prevent some attacks. And we have third is hardware IP. And finally, I will just talk about how you can secure your storage. There are two main types of data must be protected in the storage. One is your encryption key or unique identification. If these two are known to third person, so we can create some clone devices. Or same devices will become here, and it has a unique identifier and an encryption key. So we have the two clone devices. So this is very much important to prevent your encryption key and unique device identifier. And second is the sensitive application data, like your heartbeat. Your heartbeat. So if you're using a small iWatch or bracelet, a smart bracelet, so your heartbeat is, and how much gallery your body is. Such kind of things will be very sensitive informations. So you have to protect that one. So normally in this storage, secure storage, we are using the temper-resistant devices. We are using some temper-resistant devices to secure or protect encryptions for your store data or secure storage. All right, so I just want to final slides. I'm just coming here. I just want to summarize how you can be a best practice to prevent the IoT attacks. How you can keep safe. Okay, so first things, never underestimate your enemy. So don't underestimate your hackers. So they are very much intelligent than us. Okay, then we have to minimize the attacking space in our networks. So we should aware about it, whether device is safe place and the communications we are using the correct protocols, and whether we are using the correct IoT devices, and still we are doing update, security update, operating system update, whether we have to make sure that one, and implement security at the right layers. Okay, so communications path, we have to use the proper communication protocols, and storage part, we have to use the temper resistance storage devices. And third and fourth is authenticate connected devices. And we have to make sure whether we have maybe hundreds of devices, maybe you may have, whether you have the correct devices you are talking to. So you should make sure about it. Okay, and we have to use the standard protocols and algorithms, and we have to protect the data in motions. While the communications, we have to use the correct protocols, and data, we have to protect the data in use. While the execution times, you have to buy, or you have to make sure whether you have the correct IoT devices which is available, as I told you, whether the cryptography chip is embedded inside the IoT devices. You have to make sure that one. And protect the data at rest. It means while storing your data in your storage devices, make sure whether this is temper resistance storage type of storage. And at last, choose the right security vendor or partner. I mean, don't buy unwanted IoT devices. Make sure the standard IoT devices and save your IoT deployments. And thank you very much. I think I'm just very much fast in order to avoid the time delay. Thank you very much for giving me opportunity, Mr. Prasad. You can start your summarize the sessions. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Nafas. So let me take the control. Now I think, I guess now Poojani is there, so then she can just talk about the, social media encryption. So let Poojani, now over to you. So you can, Nafas, can you stop sharing? Just click on the stop sharing button on your.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah. So Poojani, over to you now.
Hello, Prasad.
Yes, Poojani. Yeah, you can start sharing. Oh, okay. So you know what? Let me share mine. I think she sent me that one. So okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Yeah.
Thanks, my colleagues, Prasad and Nafas. Hi, good morning, everyone. I hope that you all got the idea about encryption and its methodologies. Now I am going to tell you about the encryption in social media. Next, Prasad. Prasad, next. According to the research, now social media is secure. By default, some apps not much secure. Peer-to-peer communication is not much secured because we don't know we are dealing with who, in which end, like whether our data is going to the server or an individual person. If our data is going to the individual person, somebody else reading that. Or else, if we are using client-server communication system, who is handling the server? Who has access to the server and who is having the authority to sell our data? And we don't know about the other part. Prasad, third one. Prasad, next. Okay, thanks. So there are many social media apps. Popular apps are WhatsApp, Facebook, Viber, Instagram, Twitter. Prasad, next. Have you ever seen that type of app? If yes, can put the yes in chat. Okay. So I am going to tell you about the social media encryption method. These are the popular encryption methods we have been using. QR code. Prasad, next one. Have you ever seen this type of screen? Okay. Once you are newly create WhatsApp or a Viber account, you can see the QR code. With this, you are getting the end-to-end encryption method. Now, let's see how does the QR code work. First, you go to the web.whatsapp.com on your browser. Next, WhatsApp on your smartphone. Tap Menu or Settings and select the WhatsApp web top right corner. On the main screen, user will view a QR code. From the screen, click plus symbol on the top of the right corner to open the scan. Point your phone to this screen to capture the code. Next, using the scanner, scan the QR code on your browser screen to complete authentication. Now you will able to Prasad again next. Now finally you will be able to view your WhatsApp chats on your screen as well. Important thing is you need a fast and secure internet. Next. Okay. WhatsApp end-to-end encryption process. This diagram shows how to exchange messages between two clients. WhatsApp uses SMTP protocol to transfer the messages encrypted manner. You can get an idea by looking at this diagram how messages pass to internet in secure manner. Prasad, next. Prasad. Okay, thank you. Then we are dealing with the encryption in Facebook. You think Facebook is a secure place to communicate with others. Do you think that your messages, photos, whatever you do in Facebook secure? Facebook says they are using very secure platform to communicate with users. Yes, they are using HTTPS, Hypertext Transfer Protocol secure language, and also they use distance logout. Have you heard about distance logout? If yes, put the chat yes. Okay. Distance logout is the way when you go to the from security and login settings. You can set if you are logging to the 2 or more devices concurrently, you want to log out from one device and you can click see more to see all of sessions. Where you are logged in and find the session you want to click log out all other sessions. Other one is one-time password, OTP. If you registered mobile number in Facebook, then when you want to sign in somewhere, just text OTP to 32665 code. Facebook will reply with the unique 6-character temporary password. Just type that password the login section in Facebook. Prasad, next. Prasad, next. Okay. Just type the password in the Facebook is testing. Encrypted audio and video calls over the secret conversation in the Messenger apps. Audio and video calls made over secret conversations will be encrypted end-to-end across all your active mobile devices. Now, how to enable end-to-end encryption in Facebook conversation? Set the private conversation, go to the Messenger conversation and then tap a circle with an eye on the upper left side of the screen. Select the conversation from settings menu and pop-up will ask you turn on secret conversation. Select turn on. Set the privacy and security guide to better secure Facebook account. Okay. Thanks. Most of the scientists or technologists suggest that encrypted method for peer-to-peer communication is end-to-end encryption. But according to sources, Facebook is still planning to adapt it. So you guys have to decide whether this is secure place to communicate with others or not. Then you may be wondering what would be the best way to communicate with other people in secure manner. So there are the best encryption apps recommended by the specialist or the people with the internet. Most popular end-to-end encryption is WhatsApp. But other than that, there were some other best apps like WhatsApp, Viber, Threema, Signal, Telegram, Prasad, Silence, Line, Kakao Talk, Cover Me, Pirate, Cyberdust, and Cypher, and Signal. They are not much popular, but they seems to be very secure for communication. Since we don't have much time, so I am not going to explain all the apps in details. But there is one significant apps called Signal, which considered to be more secure because this app uses this app uses advanced end-to-end encryption protocol. It's called Signal, that provide privacy for every message every time. This encryption engine is open source, which is mean available for everyone to inspect. This is the highly recommended encrypted messaging app for privacy-centric people. This provides the strongest privacy protection beyond what any other messages, including WhatsApp, Telegram, Skype, Facebook. Without end-to-end encryption, your conversation most likely will get into the hands of cyber criminals and also other malicious actors focused on stealing them. So that is what I have covered up to now. So I think you have to decide which way you can use your social media apps to communication. And now my time is up. You get the idea about encryption in social media. Thank you. Thank
All
you,
right,
Prasad.
all right, thank you, Poojani. So thanks for your, now I think we ran up, so we ran out of the time. We thought that we could finish this by 1 hour, but it just ran out to be. Seems to be like we spent 1.5 hours. But anyways, now I think this is a good session, and then we will share these presentations with you since we have your information. And then now, so what you are going to take out from here, as people, now we have that global encryption program in ISOC Global. You can connect to their community, encryption community, and then there are several chats or information, like bypassing. And then secondly, I want you to group with me, ISOC. We are going to see if we can develop a strong encryption policy for Sri Lanka. For that, I know it is not easy, but there may be people who already started talking about it, maybe CERT, or maybe ICTA, but still we can actually give some amendments or some policy guidelines, what need to be included. For that, we can definitely get the support from ISOC Global encryption experts from countries from Australia and US and Netherlands. So there are lots of speakers now. They volunteer to help government to make a strong encryption policy to make it in place. So then I will send you out a maybe a form to fill it out if you want to join going forward for our conversations and then making up this policy, and then so you can work from there. Now I think let's see if you do have any like questions you can ask. We have actually we have only 1 or 2 minutes, but if you you can always send your questions to I'm going to put my email address, so you can send your follow-up questions to here.com, and then I'm going to share the presenter's email address as well. Nafas, can you type your email address in the chat? So then they can reach you out for any IoT related questions. All right then. So finally, I hope you got a good understanding about the encryption. So what we try to accomplish in this session was to give you an idea of what encryption is, what are the methodologies, like some kind of terminologies that we use in encryption, and what is encryption in IoT and what is encryption in social media. And then as I mentioned, I have developed a Facebook page explaining all those information about encryption. So now if there's nothing else, then we can wind up the meeting. So then so I will say thanks for all for participation of this event, and then we have another session this afternoon from another person called talk about the secure global routing called Manas. So that's starting at I think 5 o'clock, 5 to 6. So you can join for that meeting as well. Other than that, once you become a member of Internet Society, you will get all the notification about our future programs. So thank you very much for your participation, and then thanks Nafas and Poojani for your valuable presentations. Okay, thank you. Bye for now.